Part 15. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 141. Zuyun was so distraught that he quickly looked up towards the top of his head where the sound came from, but he didn't find anyone at all. Mu Qingxin said quickly, "Grandpa, Mr. Yun is not a member of the Fu section. My granddaughter just wanted to know about Mr. Yun's experience in Yunzhou. And just now, my granddaughter used only the most basic fireball talisman." "Humph," Genren Zhuyang sneered, "if not, how could this kid stand here peacefully?" Zuyun did not speak, but carefully looked around in all directions with the corner of his eyes, but still found nothing. Master Zhuyang seemed to know what Zuyun was thinking, and said indifferently, "Boy, is this master's method something you can see through in the foundation building stage?" The voice came again, and Zuyun finally determined the location. His eyes were fixed on the roof beams, where several formation patterns were looming. Sound transmission array. "By the way, Elder Jinlun from Grandpa Haori sect has come here. He left a message asking you to go to Kanglan Peak when you come back." Mu Qingxin's words diverted Master Zhuyang's attention. "Golden Will," with disdain in his tone, Master Zhuyang said, "Grandpa came back 3 hours later. The trip went smoothly. I found a lot of needed elixirs. I will refine the elixir for 2 days. Let's talk about medicine." As Master Zhuyang's voice sounded, the formation patterns on the beams also lit up with light. After he finished speaking, the light quickly disappeared. "Congratulations, Grandpa, you are so lucky today. In the past, every time you went out, you would have to spend a few days." "Humph, don't rush to say nice things. I'll settle the score with you when Grandpa comes back." Mu Qingxin forced a smile and closed her mouth, while Master Zhuyang stopped talking. After a moment, she said to Zuyun embarrassedly, "It's all my fault that I just used the fireball talisman to smash the barrier of the formation, and then Grandpa felt it. Every time he goes out, he will bring the magic spell to control this formation." Zuyun said it was okay, but he was surprised in his heart. Sun Suanhua had never taught him such a skill. Of course, he knows what a formation disk is. It is something that can remotely control the formation of formations by oneself. It is similar to a magic weapon, but it is very different from a magic weapon. Refining the array requires a lot of materials, and it also requires a master-level figure who is proficient in the array and weapon refining. In addition, the formation plate also has the function of being able to sense all changes that occur in the formation. Zuyun felt lucky in his heart. Fortunately, he didn't think about breaking out of the formation. Otherwise, with Master Zhuyang's temperament, he was afraid that he would be dead again. However, does Zhuyang Genren also have so many means? He didn't believe it, because these things were extremely draining of life for cultivation. But obviously, Master Zhuyang does have a formation disk that can control the 9-turn Zhuyang formation. He couldn't help but sigh secretly, Yaezhu, is this a greeting gift for my first arrival? It seems that I can only put aside the matter of going to Yaloo Mountain to find Ergu, and wait until I explore the secret realm." After recovering his thoughts, Zuyun raised his head and met Mu Qingxin's eyes. "Master Yun, don't be nervous. Although Grandpa is usually domineering, if you listen to him, he will be very nice to you." Zuyun also smiled bitterly when he heard this. "Do you listen to your grandfather and become your Taoist companion? I didn't come to Yaezhu to find a Taoist companion. That will only affect the speed of my cultivation." But unconsciously, Meng Wei's figure appeared in my mind, and there was also a strange thought. I have grown up, and I don't know if that girl has grown up. Seeing that Zuyun didn't speak, Mu Qingxin suddenly thought of Zhuyang Genren's purpose of leaving him here. Her face suddenly turned red. She said, "I'm going back to the house," and hurried back to her house. Zuyun also returned to the house. After closing the door, Meng Hui's voice kept echoing in Zhu Yun's mind. The most he said was to laugh and call Zhu Yun a little brat. Meng Hui, even when we met, you were 500 years older than me. But in the past 10 years, you are 520 years old. I calculated that the time of Diwu glazed mirror is at least 3 or 4 years old. Is it 10? Thinking of this, a smile appeared on Zhu Yun's face. One day you will not be qualified to use your age to suppress me. When I am stronger than you will have to call me brother. At this time, the edge of the platform of Wanjian Mountain sword hilt. Xianxia stands with his hands behind his back facing the wind. The sword charm was flowing all over his body, and he didn't know whether he released it intentionally or was blown up by the strong wind in the sky. Chen Hua, Bai Shi. Suddenly, he called out twice. Behind them, the two men quickly knelt down on the ground. The disciple is here. When we go to Zilang Peak, we need to disguise ourselves and remain anonymous. It's not that I, Wanjian Mountain, are afraid of anything, but that these are troubled times. The Haori sect is watching closely, and those insignificant people far away may take advantage of the troubled times to fish in the troubled waters. Remember, before entering the secret realm, don't reveal your natal magic sword easily. You must kill them all with your sword. Chen Hua raised his head and said, Master, what should I do if the two disciples are provoked and forced to take action? Xianxia turned around and looked at the big dog. Shiraishi, tell me. Yes, Master, Big Dog said with a glint in his eyes, a few days ago, my disciples found out that the Zaofu sect is not far from us, and that they are considered an affiliated sect of our Wanjian Mountain, and they enshrine the talismans here every year. There are countless. Disciples can exchange their sect contribution points with senior brother Chen for some intermediate talismans for self-defense in case of emergencies. Zhaofu sect? Chen Hua vaguely felt that he had heard of it somewhere, but he couldn't remember it for a while. Xianxia's loud laughter interrupted Chen Hua's thoughts. Ha ha ha, yes, Beishi, your big head really didn't grow in vain. I have prepared 3 kinds of talismans for each of you, 10 of each kind. After saying that, Xianxia took out 2 stacks of talismans and threw them to the 2 of them respectively. 10 Firebird talismans, 10 Earth Armor talismans, and 10 Wooden Escape talismans. The 2 of them quickly took it. Thank you, Master. Chen Hua said again, by the way, Master, doesn't he have a heart-protecting sword this time? The last time they went out for training, if they didn't have the heart-guarding sword, they would have died in the Zhuhao Mountains. Big Dog smiled and interjected, we have each broken through to the foundation building stage, and the heart guard sword is of little use. Furthermore, using the heart guard sword will reveal our identities as disciples of Wanjian Mountain. Xianxia nodded frequently, cast an admiring look at the big dog, and said, another point is that you used the heart guard sword in the secret realm, and even the teacher cannot sense it, because it is completely independent. Space. I see. Chen Hua suddenly realized it and scratched his head. The big dog was still as smart as ever. Okay, Xianxia said, let's start your journey. Go to Zilang Peak early and make preparations. When the secret realm ends, I will pick you up personally. Yes, Master. They both stood up and spoke in unison. After bowing to Sword 18, they each sacrificed their natal magic swords, jumped up, and flew straight into the sky with their swords. After standing at the bottom of the mountain, he put away his sword and walked slowly towards the direction of Zilang Peak. Behind him, some figures fell from the sky from time to time. Like Big Dog and Chen Hua, they were the disciples of other elders who went to the secret realm. Originally they were traveling together, but now that the situation was tense, they broke into pieces, split up in 2s and 3s, and made plans after entering the secret realm. At the same time, this scene also happened in other sects, large and small. In the entire Yazhu, Except for the real people in the Danja stage, all the monks have embarked on the journey to Zilang Peak. The storm is coming. In Juyang Tower in Juyang Town, Master Juyang has also returned. He immediately called Zuyun and Mu Qingxin to him. How have you two gotten to know each other during the more than half a day I've been away? Hearing this, Mu Qingxin lowered his head again, and Zuyun didn't know how to speak. Snort. Master Juyang was a little dissatisfied. He first cast a sidelong glance at his granddaughter, and then aimed his gaze at Zuyun. Boy, do you know why I want to choose you as my grandson-in-law? Zuyun raised his head, and after a moment of silence, he shook his head. You should be a monk with 4 spiritual roots, right? Zuyun was stunned for a moment, then nodded quickly and said, Senior is really discerning. This kid has 4 spiritual roots. Except for the wood element, all the other spiritual roots are complete. Master Juyang looked like it was natural, and the old god said, That's natural, don't you see how capable I am? When you hid in Juyang Town, I noticed that your spiritual roots are very powerful. Normal. And when your broken talisman exploded on top of the 9 turns and 9 yang formation, you could feel the spiritual power in it. As he said that, he paused and then said with a proud look on his face, I would say you have poor talent, but you can reach the foundation building stage at such a young age. If you say you have good talent, you have 4 spiritual roots. But I am a real person. I think the most important thing on the path to immortality is immortality. Both talent and luck belong to immortality. Your talent is so poor, and you can reach the foundation building stage at such an age, it is enough to show that you are lucky enough to hunt for treasures in the secret realm. What is needed is luck. Zuyun felt a chill in his heart. He had to say that he was deeply touched by what Master Juyang said. First, he saw the fragments of the Dao glass mirror, then he encountered the 5 Elements Chaos Sutra, which was like a wordless heavenly book, and then he met Sun Suanhua, who was both a teacher and a friend. Along the way, there are dangers. It seems that his luck is indeed very good, but it is also inseparable from his caution. Okay, I'm going to refine the body-shaping elixir for you now. Granddaughter, tell this boy about your abilities. After saying that, Master Juyang entered his alchemy room. Mu Qingxin stuck out her tongue at Zuyun, and then pulled him to Zuyun's room. When a terrifying smell of fire came from the alchemy room, she carefully closed the door, blinked and pressed the voice said, Master Yun, you are so brave, you even dare to lie to my grandfather. Zuyun was shocked, don't talk nonsense. Mu Qingxin wrinkled her nose to express her dissatisfaction, and then said, I don't believe you don't have wood spirit roots. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 142. Zuyun broke out in a cold sweat. Only then did he remember that Mu Qingxin seemed to be using wood spiritual power from beginning to end. In this way, even if she did not have a single wood spiritual root, at least she was practicing wood spiritual power. A monk whose main focus is Dharma. This must be the case, so we can feel that Zuyun has wood spirit roots in his body. Actually I am a monk with 5 spiritual roots, Zuyun said with an embarrassed expression, I'm afraid that others will say I'm a waste. So that's what it's like. Mu Qingxin opened her beautiful eyes, then smiled and said, Don't worry, Mr. Yun, I won't tell my grandpa. Zuyun got what he asked for, and this was his purpose. You must know that even the people in Yunzhou said that the 5 spiritual roots can be cultivated to the 3rd level of qi refining. It is because the ancestral graves of the 18th generation are smoking. It was a good thing that Mu Qingxin was easy to fool, otherwise even if Master Juyang believed his words, he might have guessed that he had an extremely precious treasure on his body, which would have caused another disaster. Thank you so much Fairy Mu. Zuyun cupped his hands and thanked him, feeling relieved in his heart. He hoped that Mu Qingxin could keep his mouth shut, otherwise he would still have to worry about whether to kill someone or not. Although Zuyun had killed many monks when he started on the path to immortality, he had never been a murderous person. Not only did Mu Qingxin have no grudge against him, it could even be said that she had a little kindness towards him. If Mu Qingxin was killed because of this, it would go against his Taoist conscience. But now he has no other choice but to stay in Zhuyang section. He has to go to the secret realm if he doesn't want to. 2 days later, Master Zhuyang left a few bottles of body-shaping pills and left Zhuyang Tower. Only Zuyun and Mu Qingxin were left here. Zuyun did not dare to enter the Dao-glazed mirror at will. He was mainly worried that Zhuyang Genren's array disc could also serve as a surveillance function. So I can only practice Qi every day, or practice the Liwo spell. However, whenever he had the opportunity, he would still draw some talismans, return to his old business, and prepare a lot of golden talismans behind Mu Qingxin's back. The Fireball Talisman and the Earth Shield Talisman are no longer of much use, but the Golden Light Talisman is still okay. A few days later, Zuyun and Mu Qingxin stood by the window with a panoramic view of the entire Zhuyang town. Suddenly, a blue light spot came from far to near, and it looked like a monk flying with a weapon. Mu Qingxin smiled and said, "Master Yun, do you think that is a sword cultivator?" Zuyun squinted his eyes and looked in the direction of Mu Qingxin's finger, his heart skipping a beat for no reason. This blue light looks so familiar. Could it be that Sun Qiniang is here too? Seeing that Zuyun didn't speak, Mu Qingxin turned around again. "Mr. Yun. Since Master Zhuyang left, the two of them have been on this floor, and other disciples of Zhuyang sect are not qualified to come here. Besides practicing, the two of them also communicated a lot." Mu Qingxin hadn't seen Zuyun in a daze for a long time, and couldn't help feeling a little strange. "Ah," Zuyun came back to his senses and said, "it is not a good thing for the sword cultivator to come here. What if there are disciples of the Haori sect chasing behind him?" "That's true," Mu Qingxin was slightly surprised, and then said, "Mr. Yun, please stay here for a while, and I will stop him from coming to Zhuyang town." After saying that, a green light flashed across her chest, and she jumped out of the window, falling gracefully downstairs like a dancing butterfly. Without stopping for more, a moment later, Mu Qingxin was standing outside Zhuyang town. Zuyun's words just now reminded her that this was an extraordinary moment. If that sword cultivator was from Wanjian Mountain, I was afraid that the Zhuyang sect would be implicated in the grudge between the two sects. Just imagine that Zhu Zuyun just used his sword to attract Elder Jinlun. "Stop coming, sword cultivators are not welcome in Zhuyang town." As the light got closer, Mu Qingxin also saw a graceful woman standing on a blue sword, shouting sweetly. And this person is none other than Sun Qiniang. Sister, I'm just passing by here to rest for the night and leave tomorrow morning." Sun Qiniang fell down from her sword and smiled. "I told you, sword cultivators are not welcome in Zhuyang town." Mu Qingxin's tone was very firm and she shook her head. Sun Qiniang's eyes flashed, and she said with a sweet smile, Sister, I have come all the way here, and this is my first time here, but I have never offended you, so why do I reject people thousands of miles away like this?" There is no reason. Mu Qingxin saw that Sun Qiniang was not inferior to him in beauty, and a feeling of hostility arose in his heart. "It's useless to ask you to be more affectionate. If you don't leave, don't blame me, Zhuyangman, for being rude." As he spoke, the white jade-like wrist turned over, and a round bead similar to an elixir suddenly appeared in the palm. "If I throw this thunder that suppresses the sky, all the foundation building people in the town will gather here. By then, it will be too late for you to leave." Sun Qiniang's pupils shrank, and a murderous intent flashed through her eyes. But Mu Qingxin's level is not weaker than hers, and this is the opponent's territory. It is unwise to fight for a breath. Moreover, she had just crossed the Hongduan Mountains. She really just wanted to come here to rest, and she did not have to enter this town. Since my sister is so unwelcome, I have no choice but to find another place. The mountains are high and the rivers are far away. See you later. Sun Qiniang simply turned around and walked away with her sword. Humph, these monks in Yezhu are really arrogant. They dare not let me in even a broken town, Zhuyang town? I remember it. Sun Qiniang cursed in her heart, and learned from Mu Qingxin's words that it had something to do with her use of the sword. He simply dropped it again, put the sword into the storage bag, and replaced it with a long magic weapon to fly. Fortunately, I got the map to the secret realm from Lin Zhenjiang's storage bag. Otherwise, when I came here, I would have been blind. Zuyun, Zuyun, wait until I break into the secret realm and get the genius treasure, see if you can get rid of me then. Sun Qiniang muttered to herself and flew slowly in the direction of Zilang Peak. It was less than half a year before the secret realm was opened, so she was not in a hurry to get there. Mu Qingxin returned to Zhuyang Tower and said to Zuyun, "That is really a sword cultivator, and she is actually a shameless female cultivator. She calls herself sister without even seeing her. It seems that I am very close to him. Looks familiar." Zuyun choked. He had seen clearly outside Zhuyang town that the person coming was none other than Sun Qiniang. I remember that when we were in Nanfangfang city, Sun Qiniang always called herself my mother, without any scruples. She was very polite to you, calling yourself sister. Thinking of this, he smiled again and said, "Then what did you tell him?" "Nothing, just tell her not to come in." Zuyun nodded, then turned to look at the direction where the light spot disappeared, thoughtfully. He also already knew that that was the way to the secret realm. Maybe, there is really a possibility of meeting Sun Qiniang in the secret realm. Thinking of this, Zuyun suddenly became bored and said to Mu Qingxin, "I'm going back to practice. Please tell me when Master Zhuyang comes back. Then I will swallow another body-shaping pill and absorb the power of it to make my body stronger." The two of them entered their own rooms, and Zhuyang Tower became quiet again. In a small town 30 miles east of Zilang Peak, Dago and Chen Hua checked into an inn. "Big dog, you said it's been so long, Zuyun should also come to Yezhu, right?" Chen Hua fiddled with a stack of intermediate talismans back and forth, and couldn't help but think of Zuyun. The big dog shook his head and sighed, "Xiao Zhu has average talent and 5 spiritual roots. I wonder how he is doing in the Lingjian sect." Since they joined Wanjian Mountain, they have often talked about Zuyun's training. They also knew that Sun Suanhu had left and he was the only one in the Lingjian sect. Being alone is like a duckweed without roots. If it weren't for what Chen Hua said about Zuyun's abilities and his understanding of him, Dago wouldn't be so relieved. But the journey of cultivation is not that simple. "Big dog, how about we find a reason to practice after our trip to the secret realm and cross the Hongduan mountains to find Zuyun?" Chen Hua suddenly stopped what he was doing and said seriously to the big dog. The big dog smiled bitterly and said, "You think I don't want to? Now that Wanjianshan and Haori sect are entangled, how can it be so easy?" Chen Hua scratched his head, "Then why don't we go find junior brother Joe first? Then the 3 of us will go back together." 2 dogs. The big dog's expression changed, and he couldn't help but take out his natal magic sword from his storage bag. This was not the original one, but the scene of being chopped off by Menghui's knife could not help but appear in his mind. To be precise, it was his sword that struck Menghui's knife and broke with a sound. If your guess is correct, she is the young palace master of Yaluo sect that Wan Jianshan has been looking for a long time. I just don't know why, but my body shape has changed so much. He had been hiding this matter and did not report it to Jian Shiba. He was really afraid that he would implicate Argo. "Remember, don't mention him now if you have nothing to do." The big dog gave the order, stood up, opened the window, looked towards the street, saw 2 monks wearing bamboo hats, and couldn't help but take a second look. "Senior brother, Yezhu is indeed Yezhu, but compared to Yunzhou, it is not just as simple as having rich spiritual energy. Are you from Yunzhou too? The big dog's eyes tightened and locked on the female cultivator who was speaking. But those two people, whose realm was no lower than that of the big dog, immediately sensed this, and they all looked towards the big dog. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 143. This fellow Taoist, why is he looking at our senior brother and sister? The male cultivator spoke first and raised his hands to the big dog. Although Big Dog was on the second floor, this room was originally next to the street, so it wasn't too far away. Big Dog thought for a moment, then straight to the point, are you two monks from Yunzhou? Fellow Taoist too? The female cultivator asked quickly. The big dog didn't speak, but nodded. I didn't expect to meet fellow Taoist Yunzhou in Yezhou, the male cultivator said without hesitation. Junior sister and I are looking for a place to stay. I wonder if this fellow Taoist can let me wait upstairs to sit down. Welcome. The big dog made an inviting gesture in the air, then turned back and opened the door. Chen Hua asked in confusion, Big Dog, we don't know those two people, why do you want to find out about Zuyun from them? The big dog shook his head and lowered his voice and said, Yunzhou is so big, how can it be so easy to find out? Aren't we just going to disguise ourselves? We can use them to hide our identity as disciples of Wanjian Mountain. Chen Hua suddenly realized, and the female cultivator on the street also asked her senior brother, just go up like this, are you not afraid? What are you afraid of? We are so poor. Is it possible that he can still see something about us? That little Taoist friend is young. He must have heard that we are from Yunzhou and wants to go with us to explore the secret realm. Besides, even so, we are also weak. If we team up with a strong person, if we encounter something good, do you think we will be able to share it? Hearing this, the female cultivator immediately understood what her senior brother meant. Following a powerful person would certainly provide an extra layer of protection in treasure hunting, but after obtaining the treasure, the right to speak would not be in the hands of either of them. No matter how good the treasure is, what's the use if it doesn't belong to you? On the contrary, the aura displayed by the big dog was only at the early stage of foundation building. And the two of them knew how to attack together. If you really find something good, don't be afraid of falling out. While they were talking, the two of them had already entered the inn. After sending the waiter away, they went straight to the big dog's room. You two, please take a seat wherever you like. The big dog stood at the door in person, ushered the two of them in, and pointed at Chen Hua and said, my surname is Bai, and my last name is the character for stone. He is Bai Hua, my younger brother. It turns out to be two fellow Taoists Bai. The male cultivator said politely, Huang Lei, she is my junior sister Huang Meng. We are both disciples of Yunzhou Wangxian section. Who are you from? The big dog smiled and said, we are from the Lingjian section. Have you heard of it? Ha ha ha, it turns out you are a master disciple of Lingjian sect, so you must have joined Wanjian Mountain. Huang Lei smiled heartily. He was the leader of the Wangxian section. How could he not know how many good talents had been snatched away by the Lingjian sect? Not to mention the Lingjian sect's way of survival in Yunzhou. However, he was already bent on re-establishing the sect in Yezhou, and his dissatisfaction with the Lingjian sect had long since disappeared. No, Big Dog already had the answer in his mind. He shook his head and said, we brothers are directly from Lingjian sect and have nothing to do with Wanjian Mountain. Oh! Huang Lei had a look of surprise on his face. Wanjian Mountain was a major sect in Yezhou and they all said so. If he was pretending to admit it, he would have no way to verify it. The big dog deliberately let out a long sigh and said with a dissatisfied look on his face, "Young deist Huang doesn't know something. Nowadays, Wanjian Mountain and Haori sect are fighting fiercely. Don't say that I am not from Wanjian Mountain. I really don't even dare to take out the sword. So that's it." Huang Lei suddenly realized that he and Huang Meng had been in Yeazhu for so many years, and recently the two major sects had mobilized to fight the linking Dan stage with great momentum. How could they not know it? They even saw with their own eyes that some casual cultivators pretended to be members of the Haori sect, robbed and killed people in Wanjian Mountain. So we two brothers plan to wait here until the secret realm opens. Who would have thought that fate would bring us to meet two fellow villagers from Yunzhou, so we wanted to go with them and explore the secret realm together, but we didn't know that we would meet two fellow villagers from Yunzhou. What do you think? Seeing De Go's initiative, Huang Lei agreed, "This is perfect. We are all Yunzhou monks. We are in a foreign land, so we should support each other." The four people in the group didn't have their own evil intentions, but they did have their own thoughts in their hearts. However, they were in harmony on the surface and talked happily. As night fell, the four people crowded into this room. They were all monks. They didn't have to pay too much attention to it, and they didn't need to rest or sleep. It didn't seem too crowded if they were just meditating. For several days, the four of them were making preparations in the secret realm. In addition to discussing some secret codes, they also had to exchange information they had. After they felt that they were ready, the four of them met for a walk. First, they went to the town to see if there were any magic weapons that could be used. Second, they bought some elixirs. After all, no one knew what would happen in the secret realm. What kind of dangers are encountered? On the east side of the town is the market, where there are also some monks setting up stalls. The shops in the market are all selling talismans, elixirs, magic tools, etc., but most of the stalls are bartering for things. Although spiritual stones are also extremely important, before exploring the secret realm, their role is too single. When encountering danger, they are far inferior to talismans and magic weapons. The four of them walked and looked around, but they didn't see what they needed. Instead, a quarrel in front of a monk's stall attracted their attention. "This fairy, I have said that I will only accept items in exchange and will not accept purchases of spiritual stones." When Big Dog looked, he saw a female cultivator with her back to him and a graceful figure. The stall owner opposite her seemed to have encountered a female scoundrel who wanted to buy and sell by force. "The only thing I have left is spirit stones. If I ask you what you want in exchange, you can't tell me. Even if I buy what you need in exchange for it, I still have to know what to buy." Hearing such a loud tone, the four of them looked at each other. The only thing left for the poor is spiritual stones. Could it be that you have a spiritual stone mine at home? "Fairy, I have already said that I am just an alchemist, so any elixir that meets my requirements is fine." The female cultivator's tone became a little impatient. "Can't you use the spiritual stone to buy the elixir? I asked you, you didn't tell me what elixir to buy. Are you just teasing me here?" The stall owner had a frown on his face. He was indeed an alchemist. There were no main elixirs available on the market now. He just wanted to exchange some. As long as he could make them, he could do it. But there were so many kinds of elixirs. "Make it clear. Fairy, if you don't have the elixir, then don't stop me from doing business." When the stall owner saw more and more monks crowding around, he was afraid of being delayed by the female monks, so he also wanted to drive them away. After saying that, he shouted loudly to the crowd, "A bottle of 10 red blood pills of good quality, each one can enhance the blood energy. As long as there is a plant that is more than 100 years old, I will get the elixir I need. You can change it to a bottle. Come and take a look, this is a must-have elixir for killing and stealing in the secret realm." Everyone looked at each other in shock. This was a bit too direct. Killing and stealing were everywhere, but no one dared to say this word in public. For a moment, no one came forward. It was not known whether they did not have 100-year-old elixir or were afraid that if they stepped forward, they would become the target of public criticism. Fighting is prohibited in the town, but there is no guarantee that someone will miss you and be raped when you go into battle. Fairy, you'd better leave quickly. You must have been so fierce just now, so you scared these people away from coming up. The stall owner shouted several times, but when no one came up, he blamed the female cultivator. Everyone looked strange, and they were sure in their hearts that this alchemist must have damaged his brain. The female cultivator was furious. You say I'm fierce? I'll show you how fierce I am. The stall owner's face changed drastically, and he waved his hands repeatedly. I don't want to see it, I don't want to see it. What if you ask me to take responsibility after seeing it? Ha ha ha. The monks could no longer hold it in and laughed crazily. This stall owner is really a wonderful person, he actually took the evil into his chest. Before the female cultivator could react, she just drew out an ice blue sword and turned around when she heard everyone laughing. A stunning face, like a 1,000-year-old iceberg under the morning glow, gorgeous yet cold. Big brother! The female cultivator screamed in surprise, and the iceberg melted instantly, leaving only her gorgeous face, and she ran towards the big dog. Little junior sister, is that you? The big dog was stunned for a moment, and Sun Qiniang, who he thought was only 6 or 7 years old, overlapped with the running figure. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 144. De Go opened his arms subconsciously, and Sun Qiniang fell into his arms. Brother, I miss you so much. The two had been under Lin Zhenyang for a short time, but Sun Qiniang's basic swordsmanship was taught by De Go on behalf of the master. Little junior sister, why did you come to Yazhu? Did the master bring you here? Feeling the surging spiritual power surging from Sun Qiniang, which was not weaker than his own, De Go was inevitably a little excited. Sun Qiniang shook her head and said, Big brother, it's a long story. Speaking of this, she looked around and wanted to say something, but De Go pulled her and said, let's talk later. Huang Lei and Huang Meng came forward separately, and De Go said, two Taoist friends, I have reunited with my junior sister after a long time, please do as you please. Haha, no problem. Then my junior sister and I will go over there to take a look. Huang Lei also knew that he was not staying here, but took Huang Meng to walk away. De Go also hurriedly led Sun Qiniang back to the inn with Chen Hua. As soon as they sat down in the house, Sun Qiniang said softly, brother, master is dead. What? Lin Zhenyang is dead. De Go was slightly stunned. It was not that he did not respect his teacher, but the relationship between him and Lin Zhenyang was not deep. For him, he had exchanged the elixir for Lin Zhenyang through his hard practice, which was just a transaction. It was just a sudden news that surprised him for a while. Sun Qiniang sighed softly and told everything that happened at that time. What? Mulogu is dead too? God is really watching. Chen Hua on the side applauded. Sun Qiniang thought that Chen Hua was just De Go's fellow apprentice in Jianshan. When she heard him say that, she looked at Chen Hua and suddenly felt that he looked familiar. De Go laughed and said, Qiniang, you should also call this guy senior brother. He was originally a disciple of Elder Mu Hui Mu. Sun Qiniang bowed and said, hello, senior brother. May I know what your name is? Chen Hua waved his hand and looked indifferent. My name is Chen Hua, but now I am hiding my real name with De Go and pretending to be a pair of brothers. His name is Bai Shi and mine is Bai Hua. Sun Qiniang was also smart and said, then I will call you senior brother Hua. Then she changed the subject again, are you the same as the senior brother and sister just now? You claimed it yourself, right? Yes, we are now disciples of Wanjian Mountain. Now that the secret realm is open, Yaezhu is in chaos. Not only do we dare not show our natal magic swords at will, but we also pretend to be from the Lingjian sect in front of those two people. After saying that, De Go hurriedly said to Sun Qiniang, "Junior sister, you should also try to hide the sword to avoid unnecessary trouble." Sun Qiniang nodded to show that she knew it, and at the same time, she also figured out why Zhu Town would not welcome sword cultivators. "I'm afraid it was also implicated by me." Seeing that Sun Qiniang heard what he said, De Go continued, "By the way, those two are disciples of Wang Xian section. They will enter the secret realm with us. Since you are here too, and you want to buy some elixirs, I guess you are also here to enter the secret realm, right?" He meant to let Sun Qiniang go with him and the other two. Compared with Huang Lei and Huang Meng, he trusted Sun Qiniang more. Moreover, she is a single-line ice spirit root. What? Someone from Wang Xian sect? Sun Qiniang opened her beautiful eyes wide, exclaimed in surprise, and then said, "Big brother, several years ago, Zuyun and I went to Wang Xian sect, but it had been destroyed long ago, and no one had left. Moreover, it was occupied by some casual cultivators there to practice." "Is that true?" Daegu frowned, but then smiled at Chen Hua and said, "I guess they have the same idea as us, and I guess this name is also fake." But Chen Hua exclaimed, "Have you ever traveled with Zuyun?" Daegu also came back to his senses at this time, and a pair of big hands suddenly rested on Sun Qiniang's shoulders, and asked anxiously, "Do you have any news about Xiaozhu? We were traveling together at that time, and what happened later? Did we separate?" Sun Qiniang looked helpless. "I don't know where he is now, but he must have come to Yaezhu." "Senior brother, let go of your hand first, and I will tell you what happened after Master died that day." Sun Qiniang cleared her throat, then drank a cup of fragrant tea, and told the story between her and Zuyun. Of course, she still concealed the fact that she almost killed Zhu Rong for revenge. At the same time, in the market of the town, Huang Meng said to Huang Lei, "Brother, there is one more brother in the Bai family, and I can feel that although the female cultivator is only in the early stage of foundation building, her strength is definitely not weak." Huang Lei did not comment but showed disdain. "3 people in the early stage of foundation building, and they are from the Lingjian sect, how strong can they be? And their bones are only more than 20 years old, and they are still wet behind the ears. If it is true, we found the treasure in adversity. If they dare to challenge us, you and I will attack and kill the big head first." Huang Meng seemed to be a little reluctant. "Brother, do we really want to do this?" Huang Lei said, "Cultivating immortals is to go against the will of heaven, fight against heaven, fight against earth, fight against people. Fighting for immortality with heaven, fighting against people is the resources on the way to immortality. If they are real, then it's fine, but if they want to fight with us, do we have to let them?" Huang Meng sighed slightly. He knew that what his senior brother said made sense. It was just like the destruction of their Wangxian sect, which was just because of a quarrel during the transaction with Fu Taran, and they were resented. In comparison, they were already kind enough. Thinking of this, we stopped talking and followed Huang Lei to walk around the street casually. When it got dark, they bought some things and returned to the inn. At this time, Sun Qiniang had finished her experience over the years. "Two Taoist friends, she is our junior sister Sun Qiniang. It's okay for her to go to the secret realm with us," De Go said to Huang Lei and the others with a smile. "One more person means one more force. This time, the secret realm will be extremely tragic. Sun Xianxia looks strong and is also a great help to us. Huang Lei is the leader of a sect after all, and his words are watertight." De Go didn't think much about it. Anyway, if they don't agree, the worst thing is to break up, and the 3 of them can be more at ease. "When you two came back, did you see if the stall owner who sold pills was still there?" Dago also changed the subject. He was going to the market to prepare things, but he ran into Sun Qiniang and didn't buy anything. Sun Qiniang said that she had thousands of spirit stones on her, and the red blood pill was an extremely rare spirit medicine, so she wanted to go over and discuss it with the stall owner. If it didn't work, she could only go and look at other things. It seems to be still there, Huang Meng said. Maybe the stall owner's requirements are too high, so he didn't exchange a bottle of pills. As long as it's there, it's okay. At worst, we can try our luck again. Dago smiled and said goodbye to the two of them, and then took Chen Hua and Sun Qiniang out of the inn and walked over there. Not long after, he saw the stall owner sitting on the ground with a sad face, and there was no less pills on display, and no one around was interested. Dago rolled his eyes, motioned the two to stand there and wait, and walked over alone. Sensing someone approaching the mountain, the stall owner suddenly smiled and said nothing nice. My fellow Taoist, your head is big and round, I guess you are very compatible with me. The big dog's face suddenly turned black, and he asked in a deep voice, if I had a square face, wouldn't I have to quarrel with you when I came here? This. The stall owner said with an embarrassed face, my fellow Taoist is really good at talking. If you have a square face with a round head, I will definitely say that you are a person who abides by the rules. The big dog was slightly stunned, and then heard the stall owner explain again, there is no order without rules. Ha ha ha, Sun Qiniang, who was not far behind him, couldn't help laughing, and then became serious again. Then tell me about my oval face, what's there to say? The stall owner looked up and saw that it was Sun Qiniang. His face became ugly and he waved his hands repeatedly, saying, Fairy, I said that these red blood pills can only be exchanged for the spiritual medicine I want. Even if you show me your breasts, I won't give them to you. Sun Qiniang was almost furious. The stall owner was talking nonsense. She was not a little girl who knew nothing in her next life, but in front of the two senior brothers, he talked about breasts all the time. He stretched out his hand to take out the ice blue sword from the storage bag and smashed the stall together with the stall owner. Chen Hua hurriedly stopped him, then shook his head and smiled bitterly, indicating that she should not act rashly, so as not to ruin Dago's plan. If you say some lewd words again, don't think about getting the spiritual medicine. Dago also shouted loudly. Hearing this, the stall owner quickly came back to his senses. What? You have the elixir I want. The big dog shook his head and said lightly, you have been exchanging here for a whole day and didn't get it. Do you think I have it? The stall owner was immediately dissatisfied and said angrily, since you didn't say these words, are you sent by the fairy to tease me? The big dog didn't care about him, but turned around and pointed his hand to the west. I don't have it, but it doesn't mean there is no place. The stall owner has not reacted yet, and subconsciously asked, where? Secret realm. The stall owner was not interested, rolled his eyes and said, of course I know there is a secret realm, normal people know it. The big dog smiled slightly, I mean you go to the secret realm with us. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 145. I won't go, the stall owner shook his head like a wave. The big dog said calmly, look, after staying in the city for so long, has anyone ever exchanged elixirs with you? Furthermore, as the time for the opening of the secret realm approaches, you may want to leave here safely. It's not that easy anymore. After hearing this, the stall owner's expression changed again, and he collected all the elixirs and stuffed them into his storage bag. You want to threaten me? Tell you whether I want the elixir or my life. The big dog simply thought that he had met a strange person. He shook his head helplessly and said with a smile, if I wanted to rob you, would I still say this to you? The stall owner sneered and said, don't you want to trick me into a secret realm, and then kill people and seize the treasure? Aren't you a fool? Chen Hua couldn't stand listening anymore and scolded from the side, everyone in the secret realm is looking for genius treasures. Who has time to snatch your elixir? If it weren't for your shameless the blood pill is of some use, do you think we are willing to talk to you again? The stall owner was non-committal and snorted coldly, even if you don't rob me, there are many masters in the secret realm. If they want to rob me, they can't do it for a moment. With the three of you, can you still stop them? If not, I can't do it alone. Why don't people go to secret places alone? We are also traveling with 2 mid-level foundation builders. There are 5 people in total. They should be able to protect you, right? Winning this stall owner into the team is the real purpose of Big Dog. And the 2 members of Wangxian sect are indeed in the middle stage of foundation building. 5 people, the stall owner was slightly stunned. If there are 5 foundation building periods, it would not be a bad idea to enter the secret realm together. And in this secret realm, it is impossible for the pill formation period to appear. The most important thing is that the secret realm is opened once every 100 years, and the average age of the elixir will not be less than 100 years. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but feel a little moved in his heart. After thinking for a moment, he said, "It's okay to join, but if there's a fight, I won't take action." The big dog immediately became happy. "Don't worry, none of us will need you to take action. You only need to provide us with red blood pills." Hearing this, the stall owner patted his storage bag. "This is perfect, the elixir is sufficient." After saying that, he added, "But don't have evil intentions, otherwise even if I can't kill you, just putting 1 or 2 people behind you is enough. Who dares to walk outside without a few skills to save their lives?" The big dog only came for the red blood pill and had no intention of plotting against him. The most important thing is that there is an alchemist in the team who can also identify the quality of elixirs and make choices in critical moments. What do you call fellow Taoist? After pulling him in, the big dog also asked seriously. Yes, Xianming, early stage of foundation building. Zhuyang Town, Zhuyang Tower. Master Zhuyang has returned to the building, with a gloomy look on his face and muttering to himself. Zuyun saw that his aura was a little sluggish, and it was obvious that he had suffered some hidden losses from going to Kanglan Peak. Mu Qingxin said softly, "Grandpa, stop scolding me. You are a real person at the peak of the late stage of pill formation. Let the other disciples in the sect hear it, which will damage your majesty." It was better that Mu Qingxin didn't say anything. As soon as he said this, Master Zhuyang said angrily, "That bastard Elder Jinlun has already been prepared there. If I don't repay this revenge, how can Zhuyang's face be saved?" As he spoke, he turned his gaze to Zuyun. "Boy, after entering the secret realm, if you see a person from the Haori sect, kill one. Kill one, and I will teach you a skill." Zuyun's eyes flickered with light, and his heart was like a mirror. Master Zhuyang himself did not dare to confront the Haori sect and use himself as a spearman. At first, he still couldn't understand why he wanted to recruit him as his grandson-in-law. Hearing these words, he immediately understood in his mind. The grandson-in-law is a fake, but a pie drawn for him. I am afraid that he has another purpose in this secret realm. And the key to this lies in Mu Qingxin. I just don't know if Mu Qingxin knows it herself. Facing the sharp gaze of Master Zhuyang, Zuyun had no choice at this time but could only nod in agreement. "Ha ha ha, yes, I really saw you right. Now come with me, I have prepared some good pills for you." Seeing Zuyun agree, Master Zhuyang was overjoyed and led him into the alchemy room. After entering the house, Zuyun looked around for a while. There was nothing special about the alchemy room, except that the alchemy furnace had a faint aura that he was familiar with. It's not the aroma of elixirs or the smoke of furnaces. For a moment, Zuyun couldn't remember. At this time, Master Zhuyang also took out a bottle of elixir from a shelf. "Boy, This is an elixir refined from the elixir I researched myself. You take one refining pill every day to ensure that you can reach the middle stage of foundation building when the secret realm is opened. Zuyun took it, but he couldn't agree with it. Before he learned alchemy, he had thoroughly read the introduction to pharmacology and the identification of elixirs. In terms of his understanding of alchemy, he was no weaker than Master Zhu Yang, who had just become addicted to elixirs. There are no pills that can directly improve the realm. He has also heard from Sun Suanhua that Huanglong pill also belongs to this category. However, medicine is 3 parts poisonous. Even if it is the top elixir, no matter how old it is, there will still be some residual toxicity. These toxicities are called erysipelas. The more erysipelas in the body, the greater the impact on future cultivation. So some cultivators who rely on pills to accumulate strength are very average. Just like the longevity pill that Zuyun refined for Menguia, if he takes the second pill in a short period of time, the effect will be greatly reduced, and it may even endanger his life. That is the blood ginseng planted in the medicine garden in the Dao glass mirror, a treasure of the fairyland. Moreover, if it is so convenient to improve the realm, why doesn't he give this pill to his granddaughter Mu Qingxin? But Zuyun knew that there was something wrong with the pill, so he could only pretend to take it as if he had found a treasure, with a grateful look on his face. "Thank you, Master Zhu Yang, for giving me the pill." "Ha ha ha, if you want to thank me, then practice well. While protecting my granddaughter in the secret realm, you must kill more disciples of the Haori sect." Master Zhu Yang smiled heartily, waved his hand and said, "Take one quickly, and then go and refine it." He said it easily, but a gloomy look flashed in Master Zhu Yang's eyes. As long as Zuyun had any hesitation, he would take action on the spot and force Zuyun to swallow it. People under the eaves have to bow their heads. Zuyun knew this truth very well, poured out a pill and stuffed it into his mouth. The pill melted in his mouth, turned into a warm current, and rushed straight into his lower abdomen. "Senior, I'll leave first." Zuyun was also unambiguous, bowed and said goodbye to Master Zhu Yang, and rushed into his own room after leaving the alchemy room. The medicinal power in his lower abdomen turned into a touch of pure spiritual power, consolidating his Tao platform. But Zuyun also felt that a trace of this spiritual power was quietly separated and rushed towards his mind. As soon as he sat down in the house, that trace of spiritual power had already left a mark on his soul. "What kind of elixir is this?" When Zuyun was shocked, the voice of Zhu Yang Genren came from outside the house again. "Granddaughter, follow me." Mu Qingxin left with light steps, followed by the crisp sound of the door closing. Zuyun frowned slightly, and when he was about to regain his mind, he suddenly felt the formation pattern of the 9 transformations 9 Yang Great Array move. After a careful feeling, Zuyun knew that this was the effect of using the formation to open the sound insulation, and at the same time he understood that Zhu Yang Genren had a secret to tell Mu Qingxin. And at this moment, Zhu Yang Genren would definitely not pay attention to himself. Zuyun made a prompt decision, and immediately entered the Daoliuli realm with a thought, and ran to the alchemy room. "Fen Tianyan, come." Pushing the door open, Zuyun shouted loudly. Under the furnace, Fen Tianyan, who seemed to be drowsy, suddenly woke up. Then he turned into a little man and rushed directly into Zuyun's lower abdomen. "Hide the firepower and hide under my Tao platform," Zuyun ordered, without stopping, and returned to the Zhuyang Tower. The reason why he did this was that since the elixir was refined by the elixir fire, I could also refine the medicinal power that rushed to the soul. But at this time, the medicinal power had been deeply imprinted on his soul, and it would not be removed in a moment. And all Zuyun could do was to refine it when he swallowed each pill next time. Now, he can only absorb and refine the remaining medicinal power for his own use, so as to strengthen the Tao platform and improve his strength. At this time, in the room isolated by the array driven by Zhu Yang Genren, Mu Qingxin sat nervously. "Granddaughter, you should put away your playfulness and practice well. Zhu Yangzhenren said with a serious expression that she had never had before. Mu Qingxin was slightly stunned. She thought that her grandfather was going to tell her about his relationship with Zhu Yun. She relaxed and said coquettishly, "Grandpa, didn't you say that I want to break through now, and I can only do it through experience?" Zhu Yangzhenren reached out and took out a yellowed parchment from his arms and slapped it on Mu Qingxin's hand. "I'm talking about practicing the technique on it. Puppet soul control technique." The parchment was incomplete, but Mu Qingxin could see the words on it clearly. The name of this technique made her feel that it was not suitable for her to practice, and she couldn't help but look at Zhu Yangzhenren with a puzzled look. This method was obtained by Grandpa from a cultivator of the Yugui sect many years ago. Take a closer look, the most critical step has been completed by Grandpa. It is about the journey to the secret realm. Do you still remember the task Grandpa gave you? Granddaughter, remember, you suspected that the secret realm was transformed by the sacred object of the Yalogo section, Mu Qingxin said carelessly, while reading the parchment word by word. True Man Zhuyang nodded frequently with a look of satisfaction on his face, but suddenly heard his granddaughter's scream. "Grandpa, the pill you gave Mr. Yun just now is the Yugui soul pill. No need to make a fuss. Do you think that kid is really worthy of being my grandson-in-law of True Man Zhuyang?" True Man Zhuyang said lightly, "It's just that the spiritual power of that kid is stable, and it's perfect to refine him into a puppet for control. The reason why Grandpa said that is because he is afraid that you will let it slip." "But Grandpa..." Mu Qingxin anxiously wanted to help Yun say a few words, but was ruthlessly interrupted by True Man Zhuyang. "No buts. Either he is a puppet, or you are a puppet." The voice was cold and indifferent. At this moment, Mu Qingxin felt that the person in front of him was not his grandfather at all. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 146. Well. Seeing that his granddaughter was a little distracted, as if she was frightened by him, Master Zhuyang sighed, with a look of reminiscence on his face. "Do you know where your parents are now?" Mu Qingxin suddenly came back to her senses and shook her head in confusion. She had never known her life experience. She had been in the Nine Yang formation since she could remember it. "Your father is from Wanjian Mountain, but your mother is a disciple of Yalogo sect." "What?" Mu Qing's heart felt like it was struck by lightning. She simply couldn't believe it. Although hundreds of years have passed since the enmity between Wanjianshan and Yalogo sect, no one in Yaezhu knows about it. "But Grandpa, didn't you say that I was only 20 years old?" Suddenly, Mu Qingxin discovered the loophole in Master Zhuyang's words. "Everyone in Yaezhu knows that no one from the Yalogo sect is alive. You don't know something. When you were born, the battle between Wanjian Mountain and Yalogo sect was almost over. Your mother held you in your arms and handed you into my hands. In fact, I should be your grandfather. She ignored my obstruction that day and said that everyone is responsible for the sect's disaster. As a core disciple of Yalogo sect, she cannot live in this world. Even if she dies, she will die at the hands of the disciples of Wanjian Mountain." Then, he told me some news about the sacred objects of Yalogo sect, and then left. At that time, your father was looking for you everywhere. Grandpa didn't know what he meant, so he simply took you all the way north, leaving Yao realm and going to Peepa realm. Hearing this, Mu Qing was shocked. "Is it the Peepa realm where the Yuanying ancestor is rampant?" "That's right," Master Zhuyang nodded. "Hundreds of years ago, I was only in the middle stage of forming pills. At that time, Wanjian Mountain was at its peak, and countless sects were on good terms with them. The Yalogo sect was defeated like a mountain, and its ally Molunzonia retreated into the Juhao Mountains. Your father is the new elder of Wanjian Mountain and has great power. How dare I stay in Yezhu? If I go to Yunzhou, I will be safe and sound, but the spiritual energy there is too barren. Not only is it not suitable for my cultivation, it is also not suitable for your future growth. And at that time, Wanjian Mountain had disciples stationed in Yunzhou, so there was no guarantee that it would not be possible. It will reveal the news of the pill formation period. If you go to Chezhu, there are monsters and beasts running rampant there, and the ground is full of fire. If you are not careful, Grandpa will not be able to protect you. I simply thought of going to the Peeper realm to have a try. Fortunately, due to the fate of immortality, Grandpa found this fake wood spirit bead is very close to you. Then you were hidden in it, and you fell asleep directly, absorbing the strange spiritual power of the pseudo-wood spirit bead, and you lived with it from then on until Grandpa stayed in Pipa for 100 years. Dare to come back to Yezhu. Mu Kingzin was silent for a long time, and then she said leisurely, Grandpa, are my mother and father still alive? Your father? Master Zhu Yang looked out the window, he is living well, but your mother is afraid that the worst will happen. Grandpa, is my mother related to the secret realm? For some reason, Mu Kingzin didn't care at all about who her father was, but instead felt a little worried about her mother. Your mother was the maid who was responsible for guarding the sacred objects in Yaluo section not long after she left. The master of Yaluo Palace and the master of Wanjian Mountain had a big battle. Since then, there has been no news. That battle seemed to destroy the world. To destroy the land, the two of them only used one move each. Zilang Peak no longer existed, but the secret realm suddenly appeared there. So Grandpa thought that the secret realm was absolutely inseparable from the sacred objects of Yaluo sect. Maybe you can find clues about your mother in it. After hearing this, Mu Kingzin suddenly became extremely excited. Grandpa, did you let me enter the secret realm just to find my mother? That's right. When Master Zhu Yang saw this, he wiped the corners of his eyes and said, old cow licking a calf, so worried. I don't care whether Yaluo sect is the devil or the righteous path, she is my daughter after all. Mu Kingzin burst into tears immediately, Grandpa, I will definitely find my mother. Master Zhu Yang nodded, stretched out his right hand to touch Mu Kingzin's head lovingly, Grandpa believes in you. So you should practice this puppet soul control method. This year's secret realm is different from previous years. People from the 3 religions and 9 streams will all show their magical powers and sneak in. Among them, if you go alone, how can Grandpa feel relieved? But Grandpa, do you really want to make Mr. Yun into a puppet? Mu Kingzin had tears in her eyes and seemed a little reluctant to give up. He and Zhu Yun were alone for a few days, and the two of them talked happily. Although Zhu Yun was not well informed, compared to Mu Kingzin, who had never left Zhuyang town, some of her experiences were more twists and turns, bizarre and thrilling, which fascinated her. She secretly felt that Zhu Yun's path to immortality was far more bumpy than her own. After finally cultivating to the foundation building stage and arriving in Yezhu, how could I bear to let him end up like a puppet? Granddaughter, Master Zhu Yang smiled and shook his head, you might as well read this technique first before talking about it. Mu Kingzin put away her thoughts and looked down at the parchment in her hand. It turns out that this technique requires 2 steps to control a puppet. One is that the person being refined must first swallow the elixir to leave a mark on the soul. The more pills you swallow, the deeper the mark left on your soul will be, and the easier it will be to control it. The rest of the medicinal power in the elixir is used to purify the puppet's spiritual power, thereby improving its level of strength. The second is the idea of using this technique to directly control the puppet, making it obediently obey the command of the caster. However, when the caster does not give orders, the puppet also has its own thoughts, just like ordinary people. Seeing this, Mu Kingzin's eyes lit up, Grandpa, do you mean that as long as I don't use my skills to control young Master Yun, then he will be no different from before. Master Zhu Yang stroked his beard with a smile and kept nodding. Yes, this puppet soul control technique can be said to kill two birds with one stone. Firstly, it will improve his strength and become a great help for you to enter the secret realm. Secondly, it will wait until you return safely. After that, he became your Taoist companion. If you asked him to chase the chicken, would he still dare to beat the dog? Grandfather? Mu Qingxin said coquettishly, lowered her head shyly, and kept fiddling with the corners of her clothes. Master Zhu Yang laughed, and then controlled the 9-turn Zhu Yang formation to remove the soundproofing ban. Okay, now you go and practice too. Mu Qing listened softly and pushed open the door. After secretly glancing at Zhu Yun's room, he quickly returned to his room and began to concentrate on practicing the puppet soul control method. Master Zhu Yang quickly retracted his expression gloomy, and he didn't know what he was thinking. A moment later, he also walked towards Zhu Yun's room and pushed the door straight in. Senior, Zhu Yun had just absorbed all the medicinal power and looked up to see Master Zhu Yang. Relax and show me. Before he finished speaking, Master Zhu Yang stood in front of Zhu Yun with lightning speed and put his hand on his Tianling cap. Suddenly, spiritual energy surged in the room, and the clothes of the two of them automatically changed without any wind. Zhu Yun was even more horrified, because Master Zhu Yang's domineering spiritual consciousness rushed straight into the Zifu in Zhu Yun's mind. Relax your mind and don't show any resistance. Just when Zhu Yun was about to resist, Master Zhu Yang's voice suddenly sounded in his head. He was slightly startled, and his movements were half a minute slower. But Master Zhu Yang had achieved his goal, and his spiritual consciousness faded away like a tide. Yes, it seems that you have absorbed all the power of this elixir. Master Zhu Yang put his hands behind his back, with a satisfied look on his face. Zhu Yun immediately knew the purpose of Master Zhu Yang. He just wanted to find out whether the mark was successfully imprinted on the soul. Master Zhu Yang said again, 1 pill a day, practice well, the pill will be enough. If you have any questions about cultivation, you can come and ask me. Zhu Yun pretended to be excited and thanked Master Zhu Yang. It wasn't until he left the house that his expression darkened. He came here specifically to check this mark. It must be more than just a mark. But now there is no good way to crack it. We can only try our best to remove the power of this medicine every day and make the mark as shallow as possible. The pill has been absorbed, and Zhu Yun can only wait until tomorrow if he wants to resolve it. He simply practiced the Luo curse. But he had already mastered the Luo curse, but he still had little effect in practicing it, and his progress was extremely slow. After thinking about it, he got up and walked outside the house, where he found Master Zhu Yang. What's the matter? Master Zhu Yang was standing quietly at the window on the floor. Seeing that Zhu Yun found him just after he left, he frowned and asked. Senior, it's like this. This kid has been practicing a kind of fire spell. Although it's pretty good, his methods are too lacking, so I boldly ask Senior if there are any other techniques that I can practice. Use your strongest spell to attack me. Zhu Yun's effect on Master Zhu Yang was great. Anyway, he had left a mark on him. He became stronger, which was of great benefit to him without any harm. Even if he reaches the elixir formation stage, can he still hurt me? It is with this idea that Master Zhu Yang is willing to put some thought into Zhu Yun. Zhu Yun also wanted to test the strength of Master Zhu Yang. At this time, he was even more upright, so how could he hold back? When he used the chaotic spiritual power to drive the Luo spell, a pure fire pillar rose from the palm of his right hand. Senior, be careful, this is the boy's strongest blow. As soon as he finished speaking, Zhu Yun pressed the fire pillar towards Master Zhu Yang. Boom! Master Zhu Yang raised his eyebrows and greeted him with a palm. In the blink of an eye, he turned his palms into claws. This powerful pillar of fire was like an eel in the hands of a fisherman. It twisted back and forth but could not escape at all, let alone hurt Master Zhu. Good boy. Master Zhu praised him and followed suit with his left hand, grabbing the pillar of fire with both hands. I saw his feet taking mysterious steps, and his hands moving like a dancing dragon. After a moment, the pillar of fire transformed by the spiritual power of chaos dissipated between heaven and earth. Zhu immediately gave up all thoughts of finding opportunities for sneak attacks. Although the Luo curse was not his strongest method, Master Zhu could resolve it so easily. Even if he used pure fire spiritual power to drive it, he would probably be able to scorch his body. The beard is considered extraordinary. Boy, to be honest, you should not have 4 spiritual roots, but 5 spiritual roots, right? As soon as these words came out, Zhu was immediately horrified. How did he know that he had 5 spiritual roots? Could it be that Mu Qingxin told him just now? I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 147. Seeing Zhu expression, Zhu Genren snorted softly and said, "Your spiritual power is too stable. If you only have 4 spiritual roots, it is impossible to reach this level. This fire pillar is extremely powerful. I am sure that even people of the same realm cannot defeat this attack." Hearing that Zhu Genren did not seem to blame him, Zhu was also slightly relieved and brought out the same rhetoric he had given to Mu Qingxin. "Senior, it is not easy for me to practice. I am often called a waste because of my 5 spiritual roots, so this Genren is not interested in your past. I also said that the spiritual roots of people who practice immortals are secondary, and the fate of immortals is the most important. You can practice these 5 attributes of spiritual power so balanced, which shows that your method of refining qi is extraordinary." Just when Zhu thought that Zhu Genren would ask about his method of refining qi, he found that Zhu Genren did not care at all, but directly skipped the topic. "The main spell I practice is called the Golden Sun Curse. Since you have a golden spiritual root, why not practice it well?" As he said this, he took out a booklet from his arms and threw it to Zhu casually. This was beyond Zhu expectation. He took it in a hurry and thanked Master Zhu repeatedly. "If you want to thank me, take good care of my granddaughter in the secret realm." After sending Zhu away, Master Zhu closed the door and began to refine the soul control pill. He only gave Zhu 1 bottle, a total of more than 10 pills, which was far from enough. Zhu also knew that under this situation, Master Zhu would not frame him, and he was ecstatic about the spell he accidentally obtained. One more method means one more way in the future. He opened the booklet of the skills and began to study it carefully. After a while, he was completely immersed in it. The Golden Sun Curse requires a combination of mantras and hand gestures to drive spiritual power to attack. This technique is incredibly fast, and it is a mysterious method for winning by surprise. For several days in a row, Zhu worked so hard that he forgot to eat and sleep, and he practiced the Golden Sun mantra to a small success. It only took him 1/10 of a breath to quickly perform a move. Such progress made Master Zhu nod his head frequently, thinking that although Zhu had 5 spiritual roots, his comprehension was definitely not bad. Little did he know that because Zhu practiced the 5 Elements Chaos Sutra, he had a particularly deep understanding of the properties and characteristics of each spiritual power. Gold is profitable, and Zhu has been practicing the Golden Sun mantra with this idea. Naturally, he reached such a state. If Master Zhu was not here, Zhu would definitely not be able to hold back, and he had to use the gold spiritual power alone to try out its power. Of course, Zhu also took a Yukui soul pill every day these days. But he never found an opportunity to use the burning sky flame hidden under the Tao platform to refine the mark that rushed to the soul. The matter was of great importance, so Zhu had to be extremely careful. Whether it was refining the mark or revealing the aura of the burning sky flame, once discovered by true man Zhu, he would be doomed. But in this helpless situation, Zuyun could also be regarded as having fun in misery, because the Yukoi soul pill could really purify his chaotic spiritual power and reach a more concentrated level. In addition to the improvement of the Golden Sun Curse in the past few days, the subtle improvement of his realm was also an unexpected gain. The initial stage of foundation building was also divided into 1, 2, and 3 levels. When he first came, he had only broken through to the first level, but in the past few days, he had already moved closer to the second level. Until today, True Man Zhuyang suddenly called Zuyun and said, "There are not many materials for refining the pill. I'm going to find some. Don't fall behind in your cultivation." Zuyun was immediately overjoyed, secretly thinking that his chance had come, but his face was expressionless, and he thanked True Man Zhuyang. True Man Zhuyang nodded with a smile, and went to find Mu Qingxin again. After telling her some things, he rushed out of Zhuyang Tower and disappeared outside the Zhuyang formation in the blink of an eye. Mu Qingxin has been practicing hard these days. Seeing that Master Zhuyang has left, she found an opportunity to talk to Zuyun. She quickly stuck out her tongue at Zuyun and said playfully, "Mr. Yun, I am dying of suffocation." Zuyun had no time to chat with Mu Qingxin. She waved her hand and said, "Fairy Mu, I still need to practice. The trip to the secret realm is very important. If there is nothing important, please don't disturb my practice." Seeing Zuyun's seemingly unkind words, Mu Qingxin was also stunned. After coming to her senses, she said, "Mr. Yun, you have been practicing for several days in a row, and you should relax. It's rare that Grandpa is out, and half a year won't make a difference." Zuyun shook his head and said, "It is often said that there is no time for cultivating immortals. During the trip to the secret realm, we will practice for a while. When we encounter a crisis, we will have an extra ability to save our lives. Please don't be surprised, Fairy Mu." After that, Zuyun walked into the house, closed the door, and pretended to practice the Golden Sun Curse. Outside the house, Mu Qingxin stamped her feet and left angrily, but she kept muttering, "Hate, really hate. When I have mastered the puppet soul technique, I will definitely control you and spank you." When Zuyun heard Mu Qingxin's footsteps going away and heard the door closing, he breathed a sigh of relief and prepared to try to refine the mark imprinted on his soul. "Burning sky flame!" Zuyun shouted in his heart, and the flame hidden under the Tao platform suddenly surged. In an instant, he felt an extremely high temperature coming from his body. But fortunately, the burning sky flame was tamed by him and connected to his mind. Although the temperature was high, it could not hurt him at all. Zuyun carefully controlled the flame, as if it turned into a stream of magma, flowing along the 9 veins in his body towards the purple mansion in his mind. Soon, the burning sky flame surrounded the purple mansion like an ambush from all sides. The mark imprinted on the soul seemed to be regarded as prey by countless fire beasts. Faintly, Zuyun actually felt a little scared. He was extremely surprised. The burning sky flame could not hurt him, so where did this fear come from? After his mind was slightly focused, Zuyun thought that this mark must have a certain consciousness, so it was afraid of the burning sky flame. Since it can affect his mood, this mark must not be left. "Burning sky flame, go!" Zuyun shouted in his heart, and the burning sky knight who received the order rushed towards the mark from all directions. The extreme high temperature that could not hurt Zuyun had a devastating power on the mark. If the mark was originally as big as Zuyun, after a few breaths, under the layers of the burning sky flame, only a small finger was left. "Stop! Burning sky flame, come back!" Zuyun was not stupid. He didn't know what the mark was for, but he also knew that once the mark was gone from his soul, the 9 suns would not give him a chance to explain. On the contrary, if he left a little bit, he could still fool around by pretending to be crazy and stupid. Now that he knew that the burning sky flame had a restraining effect on the mark, Zuyun was also relaxed a lot. Now that he had no worries, Zuyun was also excited. Just as he let the burning sky flame hide under the Tau platform, he made another surprise discovery. The area of the purple mansion actually became larger. What's going on? Could it be that the burning sky flame will make the purple mansion bigger? As soon as this thought came up, Zuyun shook his head again and again, denying this idea. The burning sky flame is a pill fire, and it is also a thing born and raised by nature. Even if some spiritual wisdom was opened, it had nothing to do with the purple mansion of a person. Besides, he did not absorb and refine the burning sky flame, so the purple mansion could never grow out of thin air. He did not absorb spiritual power at this time, nor did he swallow the spiritual medicine to warm the soul. He just used the burning sky flame to refine that. Wait. Zuyun suddenly opened his eyes, and he quickly took out the bottle of Yukui soul pill from his arms, poured out a pill and put it in his mouth. The medicinal power quickly turned into liquid and rushed into his lower abdomen. Under Zuyun's deliberate feeling, the medicinal power rushing to the soul was locked by his spiritual consciousness. Burning sky flame, another trace. Zuyun separated his mind, controlled a trace of the burning sky flame, and followed the trace of medicinal power closely. When the medicinal power rushed into the purple mansion and merged with the mark he had deliberately preserved to grow stronger, Zuyun immediately let the flame of the burning sky flame burn over. Zi La. Zuyun controlled the mark that had just grown a little bigger, and was burned back to its original size by the burning sky flame. At the same time, under his full concentration, Zuyun's spiritual consciousness also discovered that there was suddenly a magical power in the purple mansion. And this power was quickly absorbed by the purple mansion. I guessed right. Zuyun was overjoyed. This medicine power acted on the soul, and the burning sky flame refined and dispersed it, which was equivalent to turning this mark into free medicine power. And this is the medicine power that acts on the soul. After being free, it is naturally absorbed by the purple mansion, thereby warming the soul. This is simply a blessing in disguise. No one would have thought that the elixir that wanted to refine Zuyun into a puppet would make Zuyun successful. Generally speaking, only in the late stage of the Jindan will one get involved in the degree of cultivating the soul and the purple mansion. After reaching a certain level, it is possible to touch the threshold of breaking through to the nascent soul stage. But Zuyun has already improved the strength of his soul in the early stage of the foundation. But he was not too happy, and soon regained his mind, because the remaining medicinal power of the Yugui soul pill he had just swallowed needed to be absorbed and refined to purify the chaotic spiritual power. After about a cup of tea, Zuyun stood up refreshed, with an unstoppable smile on his face. At this time, he agreed with what Zhu Yang Genren said, that the most important thing for a cultivator is the immortal fate. With such an unexpected gain, Zuyun had no intention of continuing to practice, and pushed the door and walked out. On the other side, Mu Qingxin had just practiced the control method of the Yugui soul art, and heard Zuyun's footsteps. Huh, you said you would practice well, but how long have you been out again? Mu Qingxin curled his lips, rolled his eyes, and a smirk crossed his mouth. This puppet soul control technique says that as long as more than 10 pills are swallowed, the puppet will not know that it is being controlled, and will lose the memory of the period of control. I will let you ignore me, so that you can know how powerful I am. Mu Qingxin gently opened a crack in the door, locked his eyes on Zuyun, and silently recited a control formula. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 148. Zuyun was originally feeling the difference after his soul became stronger. Just when he noticed that Mu Qingxin seemed to be looking at him, his mind suddenly flashed. He was so surprised that he subconsciously used his spiritual sense to look inside his body, but suddenly found that the mark above his soul was emitting a strange purple light. Before he could react, Zuyun raised his right hand uncontrollably and slapped his butt hard. What's going on? Zuyun was horrified and wanted to stop his right hand, but found that he couldn't do it. You can clearly feel the presence of the hand, but you find that he is like a puppet on strings. At this moment, the wooden door on Muking's inside creaked open. Zuyun subconsciously wanted to turn his head, but found that he couldn't even move his neck. As the footsteps approached, a few breaths later, Muking's was already standing in front of him. "I told you to ignore me. How does it feel to spank yourself?" Muking's shook her head as if there was no one around, revealing a playful and cute side that Zuyun had never seen before. At this time, Zuyun, no matter how stupid he was, knew that he was controlled by Muking's and the key to controlling him was the mark on his soul. He opened his mouth to say, "Let me go," but found that it was of no use. Except for his own thoughts, his entire body was controlled by Muking's This elixir is so terrifying. This is after 99% of the mark was refined by myself. Zuyun only felt inexplicably frightened, but Muking's face was extremely relaxed. She not only danced in front of him, but also controlled his body from time to time, playing weird postures. After about a cup of tea, Muking's face was full of fatigue, and she said to herself, "This puppet soul control technique consumes a lot of spiritual power. I'd better hide back first to save the money. It would be embarrassing if the young master wakes up and finds out that it was me." Zuyun's heart skipped a beat, and he thought to himself, "This girl doesn't know that not only can she see her, but she can also hear her speak." While thinking about it, Muking's hid in her room again, and Zuyun immediately felt the control of her body return. He was still frightened, but fortunately Muking's had no ill intentions towards him, and the reason for controlling her body this time was probably to let out a sigh of relief, so as not to chat with him just now. But what if Master Zhu Yang controls him? Zuyun walked calmly towards his house, pretending not to know what happened, and deliberately touched his head and said to himself, "It's so strange, what just happened? Why do I suddenly feel a little itchy in my butt?" Muking's snickered secretly, and after seeing Zuyun closing the door, he began to concentrate on refining his qi to restore the spiritual power he had just consumed. And Zuyun also saw the right opportunity and entered the Diwu glazed mirror. Based on his understanding of Muking's it would be impossible to recover to fullness within 3 to 5 hours. Moreover, Master Zhu Yang left not long ago, how could he come back so soon? After appearing in the cave, Zuyun took 3 steps and 2 steps at a time and ran to the edge of the medicine garden. He condensed the chaotic spiritual power and turned it into metal spiritual power. Then he activated the golden sun curse and blasted it towards the empty and chaotic space. That's right, he came here to try out his moves. There was only a loud roar in the mirror, and golden light shot out all over the sky. If Zuyun hadn't mastered this spiritual power so carefully, the alchemy room would have been affected. In the medicine garden, the spirit medicine that Zuyun was frightened by had already sneaked back and hid in the hole to watch curiously, but was frightened by the overwhelming power of the golden sun curse and fled in a hurry. The power of the golden sun curse is extremely powerful. It is slightly less powerful than the chaos palm practiced by Zuyun, but they still have their own merits. Chaos palm can defeat all kinds of magic with just one palm, but each palm will take away Zuyun's spiritual power. The more spiritual power, the greater the power. The golden sun curse covers an extremely wide area. As long as the golden light reaches it, all enemies will be harmed. In fact, the power of the golden sun curse is not too strong. Just because of the 5 elements Chaos Sutra, when using a single line of spiritual power to drive the corresponding exercises, the power will increase to a large level. But despite this, the powerful golden sun curse couldn't make a single ripple after blasting into the foggy and chaotic space outside the clearing. It's like it never happened. Fortunately, Zuyun can judge the power of the move just by making the move, which is enough. After trying the move, Zuyun immediately left the Dao-glazed mirror and sat down to refine his energy and restore the spiritual power he had just consumed. Several days passed in succession. Mu Qingxin seemed to be addicted to playing. From time to time, she would look for opportunities to control Zuyun, and Zuyun also pretended to be real and enjoyed it. Just because every time Mu Qingxin controls his spiritual power until it is exhausted, he will go back to practice qi. At this time, Zuyun will take the opportunity to enter the Dao-glazed realm and race against time to practice the Jinyang curse that only uses gold spiritual power. And Chaos Palm. It's just that Zuyun only uses one move each time, because the Chaos Palm will drain all his spiritual power and use it up. At the same time, after Zuyun swallowed the soul control pill every day, he would use Burning Sky Flame to directly refine the medicinal power into Zi Mansion, and absorb it along the way to strengthen himself. Finally, Master Zhu Yang came back. And more than half a month has passed. Regardless of the look on his face, Master Zhu Yang locked himself in the alchemy room. A few days later, Master Zhu Yang handed the vertical screen and the puppet soul pill to Zuyun, and left in a hurry. Xianxia, your grandfather is too impatient. There are still some things I don't understand that I haven't asked yet. After seeing Master Zhu Yang leave with his own eyes, Zuyun's mind became more active. If I am gone for half a month this time, can I find a way to escape from here on the 7th day? Mu Qingxin's strength is not a problem for him. As long as he wants to leave, it is impossible for her to catch up. The only trouble is that I haven't found the route to the 9-turn 9-yang formation yet. And the reason why he took the initiative to talk to Mu Qingxin was actually to test him. Grandpa is preparing for us to be safer in the secret realm. Mu Qingxin glanced at Zuyun and said angrily, the more preparation we have, the more safety we will have in the secret realm. Zuyun originally said this, but now Mu Qingxin just changed it slightly and returned it to him. Zuyun was also extremely helpless. In the past half-month, he had simply become Mu Qingxin's doll. If he wasn't afraid that Master Zhu Yang would find out, and it would be helpful for him to enter the great universe-glazed realm, he would definitely use Burning Sky Flame to completely burn the mark. Fairy Mu is right, but after we have practiced for so long, it's time to relax. Zuyun deliberately looked out the window, his eyes full of hope, and said, I've been here in Zhuyang town for so long, but I haven't seen it properly yet. What's there to see in this shabby town? I've been looking at it all my life, and that's it? Mu Qingxin was not interested at all, and it was true that she had not been out of Zhuyang town a few times, and every time she left, she would always follow Zhuyang Jinren. Hearing Mu Qingxin's tone, Zuyun's eyes lit up, and he secretly felt something was wrong in his heart. After thinking for a while, he said helplessly, Fairy Mu, you naturally find it boring to grow up here. But I come from Yunzhou, Yezhou is so big, of course I want to visit it. That's true, your luck is really bad. As soon as you came to Yezhou, you were regarded as the enemy of Wanjian Mountain by the Haori section. You managed to hide in the 9-yang formation, but you were captured by my grandfather here. As soon as he said this, Mu Qingxin's face suddenly turned red. Zuyun knew what Mu Qingxin was thinking, but he only wanted to find a way to leave, so he pretended not to hear it and said, Fairy Mu, I wonder if you can find a way, take me to Zhuyang town to have a look. Mu Qingxin shook her head and said, Mr. Yun, when you came here, I told you that only my grandfather can lead people in and out of the 9 turns and 9 suns formation, but my pseudo-wood spirit beads cannot lead people. Zuyun deliberately sighed and said, I practice in this small room every day, as if I was imprisoned. I just want to take a walk and relax my mind. Mu Qingxin covered her mouth and snickered, Mr. Yun, I can't do anything about the 9-yang formation, but if you don't mind, I can take you around the 9-yang tower. Zuyun's purpose was just like this, and he deliberately said reluctantly, that's all it can do, but you have to treat me well and look at it a few times. Just walking up the stairs is boring. Mu Qingxin happily agreed, that's natural. However, Zuyun was still cautious and did not immediately agree to follow Mu Qingxin to visit Zhuyang Tower, because Master Zhuyang was not far away at this time. If he sensed the movement of the two through the formation plate, there was no guarantee that he would not come back. Zuyun returned to his room for the reason that he felt the need to practice. After staying for a few days, Zuyun followed Mu Qingxin and visited the entire Zhuyang Tower for 3 days, except for those rooms that Master Zhuyang had expressly forbidden to go to. Zuyun gets extra gains every time he goes. It wasn't until the 7th day after Master Zhuyang left that he finally determined which change was used in this formation. Burning the drawn formation route map, Zuyun thought carefully in his heart. Nowadays, it is not a big problem to leave the 9 turns and 9 suns formation, but in the past few days of verbal testing, he has learned that Mu Qingxin and the other disciples in the 9 suns tower almost have several thunderbolts in their hands. This sky-shaking thunder has no offensive power, but it is an object used by Zhuyangmen to inform and summon people. As the name suggests, it makes a loud noise after use. Its function is similar to the cloud-piercing arrow of a mortal warrior. An arrow pierces the clouds, and thousands of troops come to meet you. Although the Zhuyang sect only has one pill-forming stage for Master Zhuyang, there are countless foundation building stages. Just the peak of the late building period can be counted with both hands. He didn't believe that he could fight his way out of the siege with his own strength. But this was already a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Although he used Burning Sky Flame to burn away the marks left by each puppet soul control pill, really, it was no different from dancing on the tip of a knife. If you are not careful, you will die. There is still a chance to fight against the foundation establishment stage. If it is discovered by Master Zhuyang, it will be a place of eternal disaster and death. After a moment, Zuyun made a decision immediately. Stay overnight and leave in the dark. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 149. It was night. The wind was high and the moon was dark. Zuyun hid in his room. He first burned the mark on his soul with the burning sky flame, and then simulated the root of the formation in his mind. Then he took out a long-prepared breath-resisting pill from his storage bag and swallowed it. When his breath was suppressed to about the 6th level of qi refining, he quietly walked out of the room. In the past few days, in addition to observing the 9 yang 9 turns formation, he paid special attention to the living habits of the other disciples in the 9 yang tower. He knew that at midnight, they were either meditating or resting. He only had a cup of tea to leave the 9 yang tower. However, Zuyun still had something to do before that. The alchemy furnace of the 9 yang master must be a high-level furnace, otherwise it would not be able to refine the soul-controlling puppet pill that could affect the soul. Moreover, when Zuyun first saw this furnace, he felt a familiar breath, but because the 9 yang master was present at the time, he did not dare to feel what was strange. At the moment, True Man Zhuyang was not here, and Mu Qingxin probably didn't expect that even if he escaped, he would still think of stealing. He first sneaked into the alchemy room quietly. The room was filled with the smell of fireworks after alchemy, which lasted for a long time, enough to show that the grade of the pill he swallowed must be not low. After Zuyun cleared out all the things that True Man Zhuyang placed on the shelf, he put his hand on the furnace. With a thought, he and the furnace appeared in the Dao glass mirror. Zuyun didn't dare to stay any longer, and immediately flashed back to the alchemy room. After waiting for a while, when Mu Qingxin next door didn't move, he forced himself to calm down. Humph, these are your compensation for imprisoning me for many days. Zuyun sneered in his heart, and then quietly opened the wooden door of the alchemy room again. Concentrating his mind and calming his breath, he restrained all his momentum into his body, and then he took the steps of Changshengju. Under the cover of night, he sneaked directly from the 5th floor to the 1st floor. It was silent all around, and Zuyun was cautious with every step, fearing that any sound would alert the people of the Nine Yang sect. Now it was the most critical step, which was to leave the formation. As long as he walked out of it, it would definitely be displayed on the formation plate. Once the Nine Yang master found out, he would contact the Nine Yang tower and ask Mu Qingxin, so that he would also be exposed. But fortunately, the Nine Yang master was in a foreign land and could not catch up for a while. Zuyun took a deep breath to calm himself down. After going over the route of leaving the formation in his mind again, Zuyun cheered up and pushed open the door to the outside. In an instant, a light flashed in front of his eyes, and Zuyun felt as if he was in another space. Although he had learned the 9 transformations Nine Yang formation, he had never arranged it himself, let alone had the experience of entering and exiting this formation. Looking up and looking forward, when he pushed the door just now, he could still see Zhuyang town in the night, but now he was in the bright formation. In the air, the 9 light circles hanging were shifting. Zuyun knew that as long as he took a wrong step, the light circles would attack immediately. The 9-turn 9 Yang formation arranged in the realm of the Jindan stage was extremely powerful, and he could not resist it at all as a person in the early stage of foundation building. Zuyun's mind was startled, knowing that this was not the time to feel the formation. The longer he stayed, the more dangerous it would be. After carefully observing the arrangement of the light circles, Zuyun finally took a step. Although he had a clear idea of the route to the formation, it was his first time after all, so he was inevitably a little nervous. Fortunately, Zuyun had been on the immortal path for so many years, and he had gone through many crises and countless life and death situations. At the same time, Zhuyang Jinren, who was thousands of miles away, felt the vibration from the formation plate in his arms and suddenly opened his eyes. He looked up and saw a full moon hanging in the night sky. He showed a puzzled look and muttered to himself, "Why did that girl go out in the middle of the night? Could it be that boy?" After he left, only Mu Qingxin could enter and leave Zhuyang Tower at will. But obviously, he knew his granddaughter's temper, which was extremely abnormal. "Ask that boy first." Zhuyang Jinren thought Zuyun stayed in Zhuyang Tower, took out the array plate and pressed his hand on it, and then passed out a trace of spiritual power. When the array plate lit up, he shouted in a deep voice, "Boy, come out quickly, this Jinren has something to ask you." In Zhuyang Tower, Mu Qingxin, who was concentrating on practicing the puppet soul technique, immediately heard this voice. She was puzzled and secretly wondered in her heart, what did her grandfather want to find Master Yun at this time? Therefore, she did not respond to Zhuyang Jinren's call. After a few breaths, Zhuyang Jinren's eyes couldn't help but spray out anger. "Boy, I'm calling you, how dare you not answer?" Hearing this, Mu Qingxin was afraid that Master Zhuyang would blame Zuyun, so he hurried out of the room and said, "Grandpa, Master Yun must be practicing hard, do you have anything to do?" When Master Zhuyang heard Mu Qingxin's voice, his pupils shrank. "Why are you still in the building? Who was the person who just went out?" Mu Qingxin looked puzzled and looked up at the sound transmission formation on the roof beam. "Go out?" "No one went out." At this time, the array plate in the hands of Zhuyang Jinren suddenly flashed with light, and it was obvious that someone had left the array. He could not help but shout in surprise, "No, that person has already broken out of the array. Go and see if that kid is still in his room." Mu Qingxin was in a panic. In just a few steps, he actually drove his spiritual power, and the pseudo-wood spirit bead on his chest glowed green. Bang! The door shattered with a sound, and the door panel turned into wood chips flying everywhere, and the room was empty. "Mr. Yun!" Mu Qingxin was terrified and shouted, and the voice was heard by Zuyun, who had just escaped from the array outside Zhuyang Tower. "No, Mu Qingxin found it?" Zuyun felt his hair stand up, and he dared not breathe. With the cover under the eaves, he turned around and ran towards the Hongduan mountains. The Changshengju technique is ghostly and mysterious. Even if the spiritual power is not used, there is no sound. At this time, Mu Qingxin was already in a state of panic. At the same time, the roar of Zhuyang Zhenren came one after another. Use the thunder to summon all the disciples in the town, and quickly catch that kid. In addition, you now use the puppet soul technique to sense where the kid has gone, so as to guide the other disciples. In addition to controlling puppets, the puppet soul technique can also sense the position of the controlled person. Mu Qingxin hurriedly gathered her spiritual power to cast a spell, but her mind was empty. She couldn't help but screamed, "Grandpa, I can't sense it." "What?" Zhuyang Zhenren was shocked and angry, and he couldn't believe it. Over the past 100 years, he has actually refined several puppets. Not to mention that he has mastered the puppet soul technique to perfection, but he also knows the properties of this technique. The movement from the array just now was undoubtedly done by Zuyun, but it has only been a short time. The only explanation is that the mark imprinted on the soul by the puppet soul pill has disappeared. Damn it! Zhuyang Zhenren roared, "Use the thunder of heaven and summon all the disciples in the town." At this time, Zuyun had already run a mile away. He was a little relaxed and was about to gather his spiritual power to use it in the Changshengju footwork, when the Zhuyang town behind him made a loud noise. This must be the thunder of heaven. It seems that it has been discovered. Zuyun looked back and squinted his eyes. A ball of fire flashed in an instant. Without hesitation, he flashed into the Daoliuli realm with a move of his mind. And the mirror outside fell in the Hongduan mountains, under the dead leaves that had been piled up for an unknown period of time. In Zhuyang town, all the cultivators were awakened by the thunder of heaven. They were like facing a great enemy and used all kinds of magical powers. In an instant, the entire Zhuyang formation was as bright as day, and those disciples also gathered under the Zhuyang building. All disciples, listen to the order, with Zhuyang town as the center, search in all directions for a casual cultivator in the early stage of foundation building, with a root bone age of about 20 years old. If he is alive, I want to see him. If he is dead, I want to see his body. Zhuyang Zhenren did not care about his spiritual power loss at all. The roar from thousands of miles away was transmitted through the sound transmission formation to the ears of everyone outside Zhuyang Tower. "Yes, Sect Master." The voice resounded through the sky, but unfortunately Zuyun could not hear it at all at this time. In the Dao glass mirror, the furnace tripod that came with it was squeezed crookedly in the cave, while Zuyun lay straight on the stone bed with his legs spread out. After a while, he suddenly laughed wildly. This time, dancing on the tip of the knife, the final result was that he held the handle of the knife. "Let's see what's in Zhuyang Zhenren's alchemy room first." After laughing, Zuyun sat cross-legged on the stone bed. Others killed people to rob treasures, but they were also in a great realm, but he seemed to have raided the home of a Zhenren at the peak of the late stage of Jindan. This feeling is really wonderful. Zuyun patted the storage bag on his waist, and all the harvest flew out and fell directly on the stone bed. The most were porcelain bottles containing pills. Zuyun uncorked the bottles one by one and found that most of them were qi condensation pills and some body-shaping pills. There were also some pills that he didn't recognize, but Zuyun could tell that they were made of several spiritual medicines by just smelling the fragrance of the medicine, and he could guess the efficacy. After checking all the pills, Zuyun cast his eyes on a small wooden box. The box was small and exquisite, and seemed to be made of golden nanmuo, as big as a palm. There was also a copper lock at the opening and closing. Zuyun fiddled with it with his hands and knew that this was not an ordinary lock, but the eye of a lock array. If the lock was broken forcibly, it would trigger the lock array, and the box and the things inside would be destroyed instantly. This formation can't be difficult for me. Zuyun is not proficient in formations, but he has learned 99% of Sun Suanhua's skills, and he has also read the solution to the formation sent by Atang. It can be said that he has the best of both worlds. He held the small box between his palms, stretched out his right index finger and pointed at the lock. Under Zuyun's control, a pure spiritual power rushed into the keyhole. This spiritual power twisted and turned, and soon it went into the lock. Click. With a crisp sound, the lock jumped open. Zuyun smiled, took off the lock and gently lifted the lid of the box. What he saw was a piece of parchment soaked in a unique potion. Zuyun frowned slightly, feeling a little familiar, as if he had seen it somewhere before. When he put 2 fingers in to hold the parchment in front of his eyes and examined it carefully, his expression suddenly changed. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 150. On the parchment. He was very familiar with the small seal characters, which were clearly Sun Suanhua's handwriting. In an instant, he suddenly realized why Master Zhu Yang could turn the 9 Yang formation 9 times, and why he founded the 9 Yang sect 100 years ago. It must be that when Sun Suanhua was hiding from his son's pursuit, he dropped this parchment, and was picked up by Master Zhu Yang. Then, was the pill fire of Master Zhu Yang also the one that Sun Suanhua almost got back then? Zuyun frowned, and he had to connect the matter together. But soon, he sighed and shook his head. Even if that was the case, so what? Could he still rob Master Zhu Yang head-on? Forget it, just take care of yourself first. Zuyun shook his head, retracted his thoughts, and continued to check other things. But the rest was basically useless, except for another small box, which contained a piece of black iron, which was pretty good. Unfortunately, there was no refining room in the Dao glass mirror. Even though Zuyun was proficient in refining, he could not refine a handy magic weapon for himself. Of course, the most important thing was that Zuyun did not have many materials. Now he could use this piece of black iron to repair the inferior magic sword. After putting these pills into the storage bag for future use, he put the rest of the things on the shelf beside the stone bed. He then moved the furnace outside the cave. As soon as he left the cave, there was a rustling sound from the medicine garden. Zuyun couldn't help but laugh secretly. These spiritual medicines were really timid. He turned his head and took a look, and couldn't help but feel a little strange again. Usually, these spiritual medicines, including the blood ginseng whose beards he had cut off several times, would hide back in the pit after fleeing and secretly look at him. But at this time, it seemed as if they had met a natural enemy and disappeared completely without a trace. Zuyun stopped, looked at the medicine garden, and then looked at the furnace in his hand. The familiar breath was still there. He pondered for a moment, and stuffed the furnace into another completely empty storage bag. The breath disappeared instantly. It seemed that the spiritual medicines also felt it, and they popped their heads out, lying on the edge of the pit, looking in Zuyun's direction. Why are these spiritual medicines so afraid of this furnace? Zuyun frowned slightly, puzzled. But now is not the time to solve the puzzle, he still has things to do. Walking into the alchemy room, Zuyun put away the intermediate furnace and replaced it with this advanced furnace. After thinking about it, he walked to the edge of the medicine garden and took out the intermediate furnace. However, this furnace did not scare the spiritual medicines. It seems that it is really related to the furnace. Touching his chin, Zuyun put this matter behind his mind. He planned to repair the inferior magic sword on this open space first. Taking out the black iron, Zuyun held the sword in his right hand and placed the iron on the crack. After flying through the air, he shouted, "Fen Tianyan, come out." As soon as the words fell, the Fen Tianyan rushed out of his dantian and instantly turned into a small figure, floating in the air in front of Zuyun. Zuyun moved his hand slightly, one hand flying through the air with the sword, and the other hand controlling the iron. He gave instructions to the Fen Tianyan. Dan Huo does not refer to the fire of alchemy, but refers to the fact that this kind of spiritual fire is slightly inferior in intelligence and can only be hidden in the Danshan for warming, hence the name. Therefore, Dan Huo can be used to refine weapons. If you get a high-level fire control spell, you can even use Dan Huo to attack. Following Zhu Yun's instructions, the Fen Tianyan turned into a ball of blazing flames and pounced on the iron. After a few breaths, the iron was burned into a ball of viscous crimson liquid by the Fen Tianyan. The liquid kept flowing, and a trace of black impurities were pushed out of the edge. Under Zhu Yun's meticulous control, the impurities condensed into layers of black shells, and then peeled off to the ground. When the whole ball of viscous black iron liquid was free of any impurities, Zhu Yun controlled the deformation and slowly covered the cracks of the low-grade magic sword. And the burning sky flame also quickly expanded the flames and surrounded the entire sword body. The black iron liquid filled in along the cracks. And Zhu Yun could finally free his hands. He tapped the storage bag lightly, and a hammer fell into his hand. Zhu Yun quickly grasped the hammer handle and then knocked it heavily. Dang dang dang. The knocking sound was endless, and the black iron liquid gradually solidified. After countless knocks, Zhu Yun was exhausted, his spiritual power was greatly consumed, and he even had fine beads of sweat. Although repairing magic tools is not as laborious as refining tools, Zhu Yun did not have a suitable environment at this time. Without a furnace or a table, everything was done remotely by Zhu Yun. This was much more laborious than helping Sun Qiniang repair her natal magic sword in Wangxian sect. But fortunately, at this time, the inferior magic sword that he kept as a souvenir had been completely repaired by Zhu Yun. Just as Zhu Yun was exhausted and was about to take back the burning sky flame, he suddenly found that the burning sky flame suddenly surged and wrapped the entire sword body and the hilt. The fire was blazing, and the fire was amazing, with the momentum to melt the sword completely. Zhu Yun was shocked. This was the only thought that Sun Suanhu left for him. If it was completely burned into a ball of molten iron, not to mention that he had no ability to restore it, even if he did, the meaning would be completely different. Fen Tianyan, what are you doing? Come back quickly. Zhu Yun yelled directly. But in that ball of fire, a pillar of fire suddenly appeared and turned into a hand as big as a baby. Then he made a fist with only one index finger, facing Zhu Yun upright and shaking it from side to side a few times. Zhu Yun was extremely shocked that Fen Tianyan actually refused his order. And from this gesture, he could see the arrogance displayed by Fen Tianyan. Is this the intelligence that a pill fire should have? While he was stunned, Fen Tianyan retracted his hand and at the same time restrained the fire, which meant that the temperature in the center had risen to another level. Damn it, Fen Tianyan, stop it! Zhu Yun's eyes were about to burst, and he roared in fear, but at this time, he had no spiritual power at all and could not forcibly control Fen Tianyan. He could only let it temper the low-grade magic sword layer by layer. There was nothing he could do, this was the only thought in Zhu Yun's mind. At the same time, he also felt that Fen Tianyan was so out of his control at the critical moment that it seemed necessary to find an advanced fire-bending spell. Today it is going to refine its sword, but what if it turns back on itself one day? Zhu Yun didn't dare to take risks. After making the decision, he simply sat cross-legged on the ground. After swallowing a qi condensing pill, he began to refine his qi to restore his spiritual power, allowing Fen Tianyan to temper the low-grade magical sword. At least Fen Tianyan's every move can be sensed by him, so Zhu Yun is not afraid that Fen Tianyan will attack him at this time. After practicing for more than half an hour, Zhu Yun could already feel the fatigue coming from Fen Tianyan. After getting into his danshan, he quickly hid under the Tao platform. Zhu Yun was distracted and looked inside, and saw that Fen Tianyan had not only shrunk a lot, but was now sleeping soundly, and he couldn't help but be shocked. With his understanding of Danhuo, he couldn't explain why Fen Tianyan did such a thankless thing just now. Withdrawing his mind, Zhu Yun began to refine the final potion with all his strength. After a while, he opened his eyes and looked forward. After being quenched by the burning sky flame, the sword was lying quietly on the ground, faintly exuding an aura of the most powerful spiritual fire. Not burned out. Zhu Yun saw that the shape of the sword was still the same as before, but at this glance, he felt that the sword had undergone earth-shaking changes. He narrowed his eyes, stood up and walked over, holding the sword in his own hand. There was a familiar touch in the palm of my hand, but the sword power was completely different. Just because this is already a handle. Mid-grade magic sword. Zhu Yun couldn't help but shout out. He had used Wan Laojian's natal magic sword and killed enemies with it. There was no way he would admit his mistake. Fen Tianyan actually repaired a low-grade magic sword and tempered it into a middle-grade magic sword. This is definitely not a pill fire. Zhu Yun's heart was beating wildly, his breathing was short, and he looked up at the alchemy room. When he first met Fen Tianyan, he was trapped in the alchemy room, and the alchemy room even had a mysterious formation that even he didn't recognize. Still staying in Yunzhou for a long time has limited my imagination. Suddenly, Zhu Yun looked up to the sky and smiled. This day-glazed mirror is a treasure of the immortal world. How could the spiritual fire used to refine elixirs be the elixir fire of low spiritual intelligence? He didn't dare to think about it at first, but now he completely understood why Fen Tianyan rejected his order so arrogantly, just because he was most likely a Skyfire. Using Skyfire to repair a low-grade magic sword is definitely an insult to him. Zhu Yun was so excited that he felt like he was about to laugh out loud. Master Zhu Yang was right. The most important thing for a cultivator is the fate of immortality. There is an immortal mansion among the immortal treasures, and there is heavenly fire within the immortal mansion. So are these elixirs in the medicine garden fairy medicines? Zhu Yun looked into the medicine garden and quickly shook his head. Although he didn't recognize more than half of the elixirs, their aura levels were almost the same, which meant they were all elixirs from the lower world. This could only be because he had stayed in this medicine garden for a long time. Wait. At this moment, Zhu Yun suddenly had an idea flash in his mind. Medicine is still medicine from the lower world. So what about the origin of this medicine? He recalled that many years ago, he dug a little bit of soil here and put it in the medicine garden in the valley for comparison. Obviously the elixir mixed with the soil of this medicine garden will grow better. He understood immediately. The increase in the number of years the elixir was planted was not related to the difference in time flow in the medicine garden. This was something he had personally experienced at the time. Zhu Yun still remembered that at that time, he first planted some huiling grass, and then sat down to practice. When Huiling Cao quickly reached the 50th year, he also quickly left Diwu glazed mirror, and the time in the outside world only passed at the normal time flow rate. So the soil of this elixir is fairy soil.